with Tony Khan talking about reuniting the Undisputed Era in AEW in a WrestleMania angle, relying on the Day 1 pay-per-view to go as planned. This is Wrestling Hub. My name is John, and you're watching the Wrestling Report for December 28th. Before we get into the rest of the video, make sure you subscribe to Wrestling Hub and turn on all notifications to stay up to date with everything in the world of pro wrestling. Also, don't forget to follow us on Instagram at WrestlingHubOfficial, and also follow us on Twitter at Wrestling_Hub. With AEW looking to have their final episode of Dynamite on TNT before moving to TBS, Dave Meltzer mentioned on Wrestling Observer Radio that the company's New Year's Smash special will have some big angles to set up their TBS debut and the Battle of the Belts. I think that there's going to be some big angles on Wednesday, because there almost has to be, because they really have to load up the next show for TBS, and they also have to, I think that this week, they have to give you the other match for the Battle of the Belts, and set stuff up afterwards as well. They have to do more stuff with Danielson and Adam Page. Tony Khan has never been shy about giving away big matches and angles on free television. The AEW World title was recently defended by Hangman Page against Bryan Danielson in an epic 60-minute time limit draw. The rematch has people buzzing. Despite WWE reportedly going through an outbreak and having to pull many stars from their recent holiday tour, it seems there are major changes coming regarding their testing policy. As Fightful noted, several top WWE stars are sidelined from this week's shows with COVID infections, but WWE is taking measures the opposite way within NXT. Performance Center talent was informed this past weekend that they're no longer requiring the twice-weekly COVID testing that had previously been mandatory. Ringside News would add, "We have a little note about the story regarding WWE not requiring COVID-19 testing for talent. The message was sent, but it wasn't an email. They received an alert on the app that WWE talent have access to on their smartphones. While it was not noted if you had to be vaccinated to avoid testing, Dave Meltzer would further report that everyone has to do a 5-day quarantine. Not 10, because that's new CDC recommendations, and they then have to test negative twice on 2 consecutive days, which means essentially 6 days between when you test positive and when you can wrestle. Previously, there had been an outbreak on NXT, which led to WWE making sure that main roster talent and NXT stars stayed separate. When it comes to that policy, Meltzer said, "What's interesting to me is that the last time when stuff happened, Vince McMahon did not want any cross-pollination with NXT and the main roster brands, for fear that something would happen in NXT that would affect the main roster brands. The strategic reason is that they really want a younger audience for NXT, and the more they want it, the more they try it, and the worse it gets." With Toni Storm destroying Zelina Vega in her debut on SmackDown, she now finds herself in a feud with Charlotte Flair. Talking about her jump to the main roster on Out of Character, Storm revealed that it has changed her life. "I was just cruising along in NXT minding my own business, and I got called in for a few dark matches and didn't think too much of it. Didn't want to get too excited because every time it never works out. Did a few dark matches, did my best, and then next thing I know, I'm on SmackDown and it's been a crazy ride ever since. My whole life has changed. I have this undying respect for this industry. It's what I've been doing my whole life, but now I'm like, oh wow, I have so much respect for what people do up here, and it really is top-notch quality. I'm just putting everything into bettering myself and showing I can hang here." With Storm coming up short in her SmackDown Women's title bout against Flair, it'll be interesting to see if she can win the big one. While he was wildly popular on NXT and looked to have a ton of potential, Karrion Kross would end up wasted on the main roster of WWE. In his debut bout, he would lose to Jeff Hardy in less than a couple minutes, as he'd end up released from the company last month. He recently spoke to Renee Paquette about his run on Monday Night Raw, admitting he was worried about getting fired. "When I went up and they asked me to do the match with Jeff and put him over, I was like, sure, that's fine. I grew up a fan of Jeff, and getting to meet him and him being cool was an awesome experience. He's literally one of the coolest people I've ever met. That's fine. One of the agents came to me and was like, there's a long-term plan for this, so don't sweat it and don't worry. Okay, cool. I do my entrance and get out there. The ref comes to me and goes, hey, your 10-minute match is down to 90 seconds. First time we're working on television. We don't really know each other in the ring. Our rhythm, they come back from commercial and I'm trying not to laugh. If you go back and watch, I'm smiling, closed mouth, trying to hold it back. As soon as Jeff got in the ring, I snatched him and called what we needed to do, and that was it. When I went back to NXT the next day, I spoke with someone there and I go, look, my biggest fear right now is that there's a hole being dug for me, and I'm nervous that if I'm not permitted to crawl out of it myself and people absolve themselves of the creative situation, I'm not going to be a return of investment. I'm going to get fired. What do you think I should do? Part of this business is doing what you were told. My intuition was telling me that everything was off and felt wrong, and I felt something bad coming for months before it happened. But everyone I talked to was like, no, everyone loves you. There are no problems. But I felt it coming. I tried to, as professionally polite as I could, talk to people in the chain of command and be a good sport. One of the changes that came for Kross was his attire, as he mentioned that he just started laughing when he first saw the gladiator outfit. I got an email with what it was supposed to look like. Apparently, the music was supposed to change, the entrance was supposed to change, and it was supposed to be an enhanced version. When I saw the picture of it, I showed it to Scarlett and I just started laughing. I said I can be comfortable wearing this, but it's not going to get over in 2021. With Kross joining EC3's Control Your Narrative faction, we'll have to see what's next for the star. Another issue fans had with the main roster call-up of Karrion Kross was the fact that he did not have his wife and manager Scarlett Bordeaux with him. Speaking to Renee Paquette, Scarlett recalled her final months in WWE and explained why she never got to wrestle. I wasn't medically cleared yet. I was having matches before Raw and SmackDown because they wanted me to wrestle. After the second match, everything was going great. I get home and look in the mirror and I'm like, one of these doesn't look like the other, referencing her boobs. The next day was NXT and I immediately go to medical and I'm like, hey, I'm not sure if I'm going crazy or if they always looked like this. Maybe I'm just tired. With the adrenaline from wrestling, you don't notice certain things hurt all the time. So I didn't think anything of it. I went to medical and they were like, yes, one of your boobs is totally gone. I was like, I can get the surgery and I can manage and be ringside. That's no problem. I just can't wrestle right away. The plan was, I guess, for me to wrestle, so they were like, when you're totally clear, you're gonna wrestle. They scrapped all the managing stuff at that point, and I was sitting at home for those last 4 months just waiting. For their first appearance following the release from WWE, Kross and Scarlett will be at the Baltimore Celeb Fest on February 6th. With Omos recently turning on AJ Styles, they had a bout at Madison Square Garden and were set to face off again on Raw this week. The advertised bout would not take place, as AJ would take on Apollo Crews instead. Meltzer noted on Wrestling Observer Radio that the Garden match with AJ and Omos, I was told, was absolutely horrible. So it is possible they decided at the last minute, like, why put a horrible match on TV? So, maybe that's it. Or maybe it's COVID. I don't know. It was a weird thing, the way they handled it, because they announced the match at the start of the show. And then all of a sudden, late in the show, AJ goes, come on out, let's do the match. And he's not there, and Apollo Crews and Commander Aziz come out. So that was really weird and awkward, to say the least. As mentioned, WWE pulled stars from their recent holiday tour to ensure matches at the Day 1 pay-per-view can go as planned. Roman Reigns was pulled from the tour, with him missing another live event after. Following this news, Seth Rollins would take to Twitter to let fans know that he was COVID positive, as this is a concerning sign for the upcoming event. With Reigns set to take on Lesnar at Day 1, Meltzer noted on Wrestling Observer Radio that I was essentially told it was very important for WrestleMania that Roman Reigns, Brock Lesnar, and Paul Heyman do not miss this show. So obviously there's something big going on there. AEW has seen many big names make their way to the promotion, as president of the company, Tony Khan, talked with PW Insider about his mindset when it came to the new additions to his roster this year. I can't overstate how important it was to expand the roster this year. At the beginning of the year, I promised things were going to change in wrestling. There would be huge acquisitions, and we delivered on that. And the biggest free agent names in wrestling this year came to AEW when CM Punk, Bryan Danielson, Adam Cole, Ruby Soho, Thunder Rosa, Andrade, Malachi Black, and many other big name free agents joined AEW this year, and I'm really excited about the changes to our roster. I think the new people have stepped in at the perfect time for us, and really this is one of the best times ever to become an AEW fan for somebody seeking out wrestling to watch. I think we've put on great wrestling shows every week, and it's what's allowed us to keep Dynamite so strong now for a few years, and allowed us to launch a new show, Rampage, with the buzz around wrestling and how great the wrestling business has done in 2021. Recently, Kyle O'Reilly made his AEW debut, siding with his former Undisputed Era stablemates in Adam Cole and Bobby Fish. As Khan mentioned what he thinks of reuniting this group. I'm very excited about Kyle joining AEW. I'm excited that Kyle debuts this week on Dynamite. It's a huge match. Adam Cole, Bobby Fish, and Kyle O'Reilly debuting as a trio in AEW against another one of the top trios in AEW, Orange Cassidy, Trent, and Chuck the Best Friends. It's a dream match for a lot of ours. It's also something that I had no idea would be possible at the start of the year. It is absolutely a dream come true to reunite Cole, Fish, and O'Reilly in AEW, and I think it's very fitting that they debut as a trio, and that Kyle O'Reilly makes his AEW debut period in Daly's Place this week, on the last show of the year. I think this is going to have a really surreal feeling. I don't want to compare it to some of the other surreal nights in pro wrestling, and you had that feeling that history was being made, but I do think after all the great shows we've seen in Daly's Place, this will be a really special moment when we see Adam Cole, Bobby Fish, and Kyle O'Reilly, and a number of the other three agents who joined AEW recently like CM Punk and Bryan Danielson and Ruby Soho, and many others making their first appearance in Daly's Place. I think it'll be surreal, and it'll just be a really cool moment. I don't think anybody at the start of the year expected they were going to see CM Punk and Bryan Danielson appearing on Dynamite in Daly's Place, but here we are. It's the end of the year, and that's exactly where you're going to see him this week, so I think it's very, very cool. And this was your Pro Wrestling News Update. I hope you're all having a great day. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you later.